Listening, fill in the blanks.
Let's start.
Margaret Preston was born Margaret Rose McPherson in Port Adelaide, South Australia in 1875, the daughter of David McPherson, a Scottish marine engineer, and his wife Prudence Lyle. She and her sister were sent at first to a private school, but when family circumstances changed, her mother took the girls to Sydney, where Margaret attended a public high school. She decided early in life to become an artist and took private art lessons. In 1888, she trained for several months with Sydney landscape painter William Lister, and in 1893 enrolled at the National Gallery of Victoria Art School, where she studied for just over 4 years. The law influences all of us virtually all the time. It governs almost all aspects of our behavior, and even what happens to us when we are no longer alive. It affects us from the embryo onwards. It governs the air we breathe, the food and drink we consume, our travel, family relationships, and our property. It applies at the bottom of the ocean and in space. There is now someone with IT skills or an IT help desk in every UK school, every company, every hospital, every local and central government office. Without their knowledge, many parts of commercial and social life today would seize up in minutes. But legal understanding is just as vital and as universally needed. The American comedian Jerry Seinfeld put it like this: "We are all throwing the dice, playing the game, moving our pieces around the board, but if there is a problem, the lawyer is the only person who has read the inside of the top of the box." In other words, the lawyer is the only person who has read and made sense of the rules. Since the 1960s, a wealth of investigations has been conducted, and most of them, thankfully, have been of the non-armchair variety. While it would be wrong to denigrate all armchair research that based on an examination of available published materials, it has turned out that so little progress had been made in the area of Pacific voyaging because most writers relied on the same old sources, travelers' journals, or missionary narratives compiled by unskilled observers. After Sharp, this began to change, and researchers conducted most of their investigations not in libraries, but in the field. The geographer Edwin Doran followed a quite different approach. He was interested in obtaining exact data on canoe sailing performance, and to that end employed the latest electronic instrumentation. Doran traveled on board traditional sailing canoes in some of the most remote parts of the Pacific, all the while using his instruments to record canoe speeds in different wind strengths. From gales to calms, the angle canoes could sail relative to the wind. In the process, he provided the first really precise attributes of traditional sailing canoes. Australian mammals generally reproduce much more slowly than rabbits, cats, and foxes, and adaptation to prevent overpopulation in the arid environment, where food can be scarce and unreliable and populations decline because they can't grow fast enough to replace animals killed by the predators. Johnson says dingoes are the solution to this problem because they keep cat and fox populations under control. Besides regularly eating the smaller predators, dingoes will kill them simply to lessen competition. Reaching out from a desolate spot where 3 states meet, for 2,500 kilometers in either direction, is the world's longest fence, 2 meters high and stretching from the coast in Queensland to the Great Australian Bight in South Australia. It is there to keep dingoes out of southeast. The fence separates the main types of livestock found in Australia. To the northwest of the fence, cattle predominate, to the southwest, sheep fill the landscape. In fact, Australia is a land dominated by these animals: 25 million cattle, 100 million sheep and just over 20 million people. Mark Clifford, general manager of a firm that manages over 200,000 head of cattle, is not convinced by Allen's assertion. Clifford says, "It's obvious if we drop or loosen control on dingoes, we are going to lose more calves." He doesn't believe that dingoes will go after kangaroos when calves are around. Nor is he persuaded of dingoes' supposed ecological benefits, saying he is not convinced that they manage to catch cats that often, believing they are more likely to catch small native animals instead. In a related development, a great many people now document local and family events in the form of videos. Many schools, too, produce video yearbooks. All these visual records may well prove to be invaluable sources of information for future historians. The glaring contradiction is that the two approaches, the academic and what we might term the popular, have intersected very little. With a few notable exceptions, professional historians have tended to avoid involvement in television programs about history, and have even less impact on what is being captured and preserved on video. And the potential of moving images has wielded negligible influence on the academic study of history. This does not mean that mainstream historians have totally rejected the use of moving images as sources. The majority seem intrigued by the idea, and valuable research has been carried out into the history and analysis of films with a broad circulation, using them as a source of information on the social and intellectual history of the 20th century. Journals such as American History Review have played a significant role in this field.
Like, share, subscribe the channel, and press the bell icon for further updates.